Hello, and welcome to the Wombs of the World podcast, where culture is dynamic and birth is universal. Today, we are answering your Instagram questions with this Q&A with Charlotte, our founder. Hi, Charlotte.
Hey, Kendrick, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm excited about life.
Awesome. Shall we jump right in and answer what the people want to know?
What do the people want to know?
So we'll get right into it. How did you get started in birth work?
Oh, birthwork found me. I think that's the case for a lot of us birth workers. Such a calling at such a young age. But actually, I think for a lot of us, we remember the first time we learned what a doula was, whether we had been acting as doulas prior in different contexts. Like I started babysitting, like taking care of infants when I was so young, like 12, started taking care of infants. And when I was 19, I was on a farm in Costa Rica. And the owner of this property was this incredible, magical woman. And she was telling me about her birth story. She had 3 sons. She was telling me her birth story, and she told me her birth story via slam poetry, and she had a drum circle at her birth. So she's like stomping her foot and telling me her story, and I'm like sitting on the floor eating banana ice cream and just having my mind blown of like, wait, birth isn't like this medical hospital event where someone's like screaming and being, the way that it's depicted on TV. I was like, you had a home birth? First of all, like a home, 19, I've never thought of the concept of a home birth. And then in her poem, she's talking about her doula and how her doula was holding her. And like, she just had such a powerful experience. And afterwards I asked her what a doula was, and she told me, and I knew it was one of those moments of like, oh, I will do that someday. But I was like, I have to wait until I'm much more of a woman to be able to hold that space. I was also fairly convinced that I needed to be a mother. I had to have that initiation myself before I could support someone else through it. And fast forward like 5 or 6 years, I met this pregnant woman who had been a doula, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to be a doula someday. Like, that sounds great. And she was like, do it now, because once you have kids, like being on call is so hard. And also just like once you have kids, like your life changes. And not that there's amazing doula mamas too, but the fact that you're in your mid-20s, you still have a lot of energy. You can still function on little sleep. You can go for a good 30-hour stretch. Like, that was the time. And she said that, and it was kind of that permission I needed, and jumped right in. It was just like, oh, you're right. And then literally like 3 weeks later had finished a training. And then 2 months after that had my first birth. And then another 2 months later, I was in Tanzania. It was a lot really fast.
Which, this is not an Instagram question, but I want to know, how did you even end up in Tanzania?
A fellow doula trainee in my training had connected with a midwife in Tanzania who is this Canadian woman who had married a Tanzanian man and was living over there, and it was literally like a Google search connection. And she was like, the midwife was like, yeah, come on over, I'll get you set up at a clinic. And we were just like, okay. And we showed up. And it was I don't recommend it. Thus why we have now Wombs of the World trips that have a whole lot of processing built into it. Because that first trip that I did as a brand new baby doula, it was, as a new doula, it was a lot, and it traumatized me. And it was obviously very formative for me as a birth worker, but it was a lot. For me as a traveler, it wasn't that big of a step to take. Like, I had traveled extensively around the world by myself before, so it didn't feel like that big of a jump to go that far away to do something such as birth work. But then being there as a birth worker, I was like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. And luckily, doulas are really just there like holding space. And so I was doing a whole lot of literally holding moms and babies. And it's funny now, having been back to Tanzania so many times, but that first year, I was like up on the birth beds behind mom, like letting them lean on me. Like, I had so much enthusiasm for birth as like a brand new, super excited doula, and like wanting that experience and wanting to witness birth and being so hungry for it, which is a reason I welcome like newer doulas to the Tanzania program, even though I'm like, you don't have a lot of experience, so you're not bringing a lot of experience to the table in terms of the support, but you're bringing all that enthusiasm and all of that like eagerness for birth. And I think that their hunger combined with the softness of other participants who have a lot of birth experience lends to a really great trip dynamic, like group dynamic and being of service.
So we talked about this a little bit in that very first episode, but we have a question here on why did you start Wombs of the World?
Similar to being called into birthwork, it started itself. I feel like so much of it, I've just been a conduit. I've been along for the ride. I've been following green lights, been putting the work in, obviously, where work needs to be put in. The Wombs of the World started, I wanted to start it because it combined the things I was most passionate about. Super passionate about travel, super passionate about babies, like super passionate about babies. The fact that I was like, wait, I made a job where I get to go hold babies around the world. Are you kidding? So proud of myself. And then also facilitating travel for other people. I love that. And coming together as women. And what has grown from it, I didn't see coming. When that like first seed was planted, I mean, when the first seed was planted, I was already like, I'm going to be addressing the UN and we're going to be revolutionizing maternal health by bringing doulas everywhere. Like it was an immediate, the revolution was in motion. The wheels were in motion. But in terms of the educational aspect and the community aspect and the social justice aspect and these other things that have really grown from it, I didn't see that coming when we were first getting started. I don't know if that was the question exactly, but it's where we took it.
Yeah, I mean, that answered on like why did you start it? It really started itself. So I think that's totally fair. And if somebody is interested in learning more about all of the ins and outs and all the different projects happening in the world, definitely check out that first episode if you haven't already. Jumping into our next question is how has Wombs of the World affected you personally?
I mean, it has completely taken over my mind, body, and spirit in my waking life and in my sleeping life. I had a dream the other night. This was so funny. I had a dream the other night where I was very face to face, like very close with Taylor Swift. I was like convincing her that she needed to have a doula at her births. I was like, do you understand the social impact that your birth could have on the world? Anyway, so like I'm literally eating, breathing, sleeping this work. And it has obviously also greatly impacted my career as a birth worker. So there's like one side of me that's running Wombs of the World. And when you strip away the mission of Wombs of the World, it's running a business. Like it's managing a whole lot of clients and moving pieces and answering emails and doing the marketing upkeep and managing teams. And thank God you have joined us. Thank the heavens. You are so helpful. Thank you. But as a birth worker, because for the first handful of years of Wombs of the World, I was also a doula. And I have learned so much from our fellow participants. I always learn a lot from the midwives and from the moms giving birth in Tanzania and just from the travel. But having had the opportunity of now having spent hundreds of days with fellow birth workers from around the world and just hearing their stories, I mean, that is beyond any doula training you could possibly take. You know, like in a doula training, you've got 3 days, most doula trainings, you've got like 3 days and you're geeking out, but this is nonstop every day for 11 days with a bunch of experienced birth workers. And when I got started, I was so fresh that I just learned so much from them, like hearing them, you know, like a word of affirmation that they liked. So I was like, oop, I am putting that in my back pocket and getting it out at the next birth. And now it's all so fluid. I don't even know like what came from where, because it's all just part of the birth worker that I am now.
Do you have a favorite trip moment? Speaking of traveling and meeting lots of different people, what is your favorite trip moment?
Oh, there are so many, and every single trip is so different because it's so many random people coming together. So many different walks of life, and you just never know what kind of conversations you're going to have and who's going to show up. And so, yeah, every single trip has been so different. And highlights for me is witnessing transformation is so cool. Just like witnessing some of the ceremonies that take place in Ecuador and like seeing women literally have, so Mama Mila, one of the midwives there, she very gently and metaphorically takes all of your baggage and unpacks it all and sorts through it and then helps you repack it and sends you home with what you need and like leaves the rest on the land as an offering. And she does that, and obviously that's metaphorical, but she does it with plant medicine. And I witness these women heal generational trauma out of their bodies. Like she uses nettle, stinging nettle, and she starts by rubbing the stinging nettle on your head and then down on your neck and on either side of your neck, and you can literally hear it burning when it's on you. Like the needles are going into your skin. I'll show you a picture later. It's aggressive. And then onto your back, onto your neck, and then onto your low back. And she is one of the few people in the world that is still practicing this particular kind of medicine. And so like baseline, it's an allergic reaction that you're experiencing because like most of us very much allergic to stinging nettle. But in her medicine and the way that she practices it is pulling out ancestral trauma from your body. And so every single person that I've witnessed receive this nettle ceremony has a totally different reaction to it. And people within Ecuador travel far to see Mama Mila for this particular cleansing. And so on our trips, I've seen some women like scream, like you can see, like demons coming out of them with the kind of scream. I've seen others laugh, like lose it laughing. Others are really quiet or really internal, maybe like a tear sheds and they just get like really, really introspective. Some people have to like get up and like move around and jump. Like every single person reacts really differently. But at the end of the ceremony, everybody is just like, whoa, that was so intense. And it lingers all day. So it's not, in terms of plant medicine, it doesn't have like a hallucinogenic property the way that San Pedro or ayahuasca or other plants from the region will impact your brain. But it's so powerful that I've had participants say that it's stronger than other plant medicine that they have done before that does have the hallucinogenic properties, just because of what it stirs up and what it pulls up. And so that's literally Mama Mila pulling up, like opening all of your suitcases of your entire life, going through it, throwing socks around, and then packaging it back up and giving it to you to take home. And those have been such highlights for me of just kind of this moment of like, I get to witness this. And it's similar to witnessing birth. It's like I get to witness this transformation and this experience that so few people on the planet have had. So that's a huge highlight. Just such an honor to witness Mama Mila and working her magic. And then, there was a time where a baboon got into our safari Jeep, and that was a pretty wild ride. Definitely a highlight and also one of the scariest moments of my life.
You guys were all in the car?
We were parked at the gate. You met Patrick, my dearest.
Yeah.
My dearest friend, Patrick. Dearest friend. Patrick was...
For those who don't know Patrick, who is Patrick?
Patrick is the first friend I made in Tanzania. He was originally the man who picked us up at the airport that first year in 2018. We immediately became like truly best friends. We're like, this is a soul connection. And since then, Patrick has become a really outstanding safari guide. So now he does that. But so now on our Wombs of the World trip, he is our safari guide, as well as one of my, like, Patrick and I hang out all the time. But he was very new. He was a very new guide at this particular point in time. I think that he was kind of like faking the guide. He like had rented the vehicle and he's like, I can drive you. I'm good at driving. And I don't know if he was messing with us or if he forgot, but we get back to the gate at the exit of the park and we had the top up and all the windows down. And these baboons are ninjas. They have military tactics. They are ready to go. So we're all sitting in the car. We're like, oh my God, that was so great. Look at the picture of the elephant. We're recapping our amazing day. And we see one approaching from the front, gets on the hood and like yells at all of us. And then as that one is distracting us, another one comes in from the top, fully into the vehicle. It's looking for food, is what it's looking for. And what was hilarious about that moment and terrifying is that all 6 of us in the vehicle responded very differently. Like very, very differently. My reaction was to like throw myself down on the ground and protect my head. So clearly like freeze reaction. There was another woman in the vehicle that was like, my baby, come to me. It was like so excited that a baboon was that close to her. Another woman treated the baboon like a dog and was like, no to the baboon. One woman, the elder who was like our very experienced doula on that particular trip, just really calmly opened the door and got out. And then another person like trampled over me, like fleeing for their life. Anyways, we all responded very, very differently to this scene. And I don't think I've ever laughed that hard in my whole life, especially Patrick coming back out and yelling at the baboon and the baboons being scared of the locals. Not of us tourists. Us tourists, we are easy prey. Anyway, neither one of those are particularly birth related, but definitely highlights for me on Wombs of the World trips. And don't worry, we now have baboon protocol.
I think that's great because one of the things that I took away from going on Wombs of the World trip is how there was so much I got out of it that I never anticipated. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that those, some of your favorite trip moments ended up with the people or the unexpected things that you just cannot plan, which maybe the baboon is it. But that is our next question, which is, what is your most unexpected Wombs of the World trip moment? And this can be good or bad.
Well, definitely the baboons were not on the agenda. They are never on the agenda. And now when people ask about safety in Tanzania, I'm like, politically, really safe place. Never witnessed any kind of like sketchy moment, but baboons, watch out. But I mean, I would say that maybe the greatest unexpected is I have made the best friends of my life through this organization and through these trips and just what it has grown into. I think initially I was always, well, again, initially I was like, we're changing the world, the revolution is now, but also thought that it would be a side project, that it would be something that we dabble in and not this, we're growing so fast right now and it's beautiful and it's scary and we're on the precipice of great, huge things. And I don't know if I really saw that coming. So that's an unexpected and beautiful and scary and challenging. And it's so much learning constantly.
How long have you been a birth worker?
Since 2017. Actually, yeah, as of right now, it's 8 full years, September.
Congratulations.
Oh my goodness, my babies are so big. No. Yeah.
How many births have you supported as a birth worker?
I don't know. I've lost count because births in Tanzania rack up so differently, because sometimes I'm like, oop, like I feel like I've witnessed a lot of babies be born, like a lot of babies come into the world, but when it comes to actually supporting, I'm probably in like the 50s or 60s of like individual clients. But yeah, I've witnessed hundreds of babies enter the world. In that first year in Ecuador, we were also working at the clinics there. Now the Ecuador trip is all learning and workshops and ceremonies and following the traditional midwives. But the first 2019 trips, I spent the whole month there in July of 2019 and witnessed a ton of babies be born in Ecuador as well. So I love witnessing birth. And I miss that like eagerness of the baby doula in me. Because now I get to Tanzania and I'm like, yep, birth. I'm like, what are my nurse friends doing? So very grateful for the young doulas.
Do you still support births?
Yes. Well, yes and no. I moved to Paris 2 years ago. Also exactly this time, literally 2 years ago today. I moved back to Paris where I grew up. So I lived in France from 1995 to 2005, from ages 4 to 14 when I was a kid. That's a different story as to why, but essentially my parents are crazy and had a midlife crisis and were like, let's go to France for a year, and it turned into 10. And so I moved back here in 2023 when Wombs of the World became full-time. I was like, okay, I can do this really from anywhere. I want to be back in Paris. I was also in a long-distance relationship with someone here. It all kind of lined up to make that transition happen. And birth work is not recognized here. Doulas are not recognized. And so I recently had a client, but I was literally not allowed to accompany her at the hospital. So I'm like, well, that is policy we will be changing as soon as we have some time. But I love supporting mamas.
What advice do you have for someone who is a brand new doula or interested in birth work?
Do it. Do it. Answer the call. Answer the call. Answer the call. Answer the call. I think that there's a lot of people that get in their own ways in terms of like the fear of getting started or the fear of not knowing enough. I hear that all the time from our participants of like, oh yeah, I did my training, but they just don't, they can't get over their own fears of like not being enough. And I think that that's just poison that culture has created of like never enough, must work harder, must be productive, must be prolific. And birth work is soft and birth work is gentle. And as a doula, you do not need all the answers at all. And so if you're like worried about not knowing enough and not being that, like just being there with her and being able to put your forehead against hers because for those of you who don't know, when a mom is transitioning around 8 centimeters, most of the time, if they're unmedicated, they are like, I can't do this anymore. Cut this baby out of me. They're praying to gods they don't believe in. Like, it's a very, very intense moment. And you as the doula, just being able to be like, hey, mom, come back. Get out of your head. Get into your body. Come back to my breath. Like, you don't need to know what position baby is in or what stage is happening or what the monitors are saying to have the wherewithal to be like, hey, I got you. And that's what the doula is for. And so you'll learn from attending births. So don't take another training unless it's ours. Just kidding. Take as many trainings as you want all over the world. But like, you don't need more. You just need to get started. And so I have all kinds of suggestions for how doulas can get started. And I literally made it a very accessible course called our Doula Launchpad. And you can find it on our website. And it's literally like on there, I give you a whole tutorial on like how to build your website and how to get your marketing going and how to get your first couple clients, because there's a lot of gatekeeping in the birth world. There's a lot of gatekeeping, generally speaking, in all industries. And I understand. But when it comes to birth, I do not believe in it. I think that there is no such thing as having too many doulas. And I talk to people who are like, but there's too, like, for instance, I started in the community of Asheville, North Carolina. And there's a joke of like, you throw a rock in Asheville and you hit an herbalist, a doula, and an acupuncturist, like all with the same rock at the same time. Like there's just such an abundance of holistic alternative care providers there. And there are a lot of doulas, and there are some phenomenal doulas who have been very impactful for me coming out of there. Like Asheville is a really, really witchy place in the best of ways. And, but I hear from doulas there like, oh, there's just too much competition. It's like, there are so many babies being born all the time that the more doulas there are in the world, the more we're going to be contributing to the narrative of like, what is a doula? And mostly like everybody deserves one. If you want one, obviously maybe your partner is like the most, but even they need a doula too. Everybody needs a doula. Like very few people get married without like a wedding planner. How dare you go through the greatest transition of your life without a little extra support?
I love that. I love thinking about it as like a wedding planner because that is a very accurate, very accurate explanation of what a doula can do and help smooth things over.
Totally.
Our next question might be my favorite of the bunch, which is there a new location that you would like to have a Moons of the World trip?
Yes, there are so many. But well, we thought that the next location would be India. And I went on a scouting trip to India in 2023 with some of our core doulas that have been on our team since the get-go, and loved it. But also, the scouting trip didn't go as I didn't get out of the scouting trip what I needed in order to create a trip. But India is still very high on my list just because like Ayurvedic practices are so incredible, and like the culture there is so much about pampering the mom. So much about postpartum pampering, and Ayurvedic care is just so lovely. And so the future India trip, whenever that takes place, is going to essentially just be a spa trip. Let's be real. We're going to get a lot of treatments. And then the highest on my list in terms of priorities beyond India, maybe before India, I want to go to Japan. I need to go to Japan. We got to go to Japan. Japan is so high on my list. But so many places, like, and part of the philosophy of Wombs of the World and how we got to where we are now is by following green lights and having doors opened and invitations made. And so we now have a new consultant on our team who's amazing, and she's from Colombia, and she's like ready to go. She's like ready to run a Colombia program. I'm like, okay, tell me when, where. That's how our Mexico program came about. There was an incredible young midwife who was living with the midwives in Ecuador. She was like doing a traditional midwifery exchange. And initially I was like, I need you as a trip facilitator in Ecuador. Like, can I please keep you forever? And then she was like, we got to do a Mexico program. And I was like, yes, we do. Next thing she knows, I'm there and we're planning a trip. And now she's the director of our Mexico program. So it's very much, however the river flows, we ride. And sometimes it's like, this is going to be a whitewater reference, but nose up, toes up. Like, we want to avoid drowning, and so we just have to stay afloat. And so for that, you want to keep your nose out of the water and your toes up so that you don't get caught on a rock and then drown. We went too dark there. Pulling it back. But that's sometimes with Wombs of the World, the flow gets really intense. Like a lot happens at once, and we are in full flow. And I love that because that means we're doing the right things and we're on the right path and everything is aligning. But that can also be so much to handle and just so much to hold. Because we're like, I have conversation. I speak to people in different time zones all day long. And it's so cool because all I'm talking to is birth workers all over the world, all day. Like the only people I ever interact with are birth workers and like the occasional accountant. I'm like, that's so special that these are the conversations I get to have all day long. So Japan, India, and who knows what might be next. I would like to do something in France, not like as a learning trip, but maybe as a retreat. Like come on a birthworker retreat, essentially. Like who wants to drink rosé in the south of France in the summertime with me?
So I hear you bring up ceremony a lot when we talk about the Mexico and the Ecuador trip, not as much Tanzania. So can you talk a little bit more about what is ceremony and why does it matter for birth workers?
Hmm. Ceremony is something that I learned a lot through the midwives that we work with. And essentially, life is a ceremony. And birth is one of the greatest ceremonies and greatest initiations. And when treated that way, it gives it just so much more reverence and understanding. So, treating it as a ceremony and not as like a medical event helps us bring that gentleness and that softness and that respect and the dignity to birth that is so regularly stripped away in the hospital setting. Um and in Ecuador, they live with intention and with ceremony. So it's like we'll be starting something and there's always like Palo Santo and sage burning and there's like blessings and and they say to us, it's like, this is not a performance for us. Like this is literally just how we go about our lives. And for like me as like a Western North American European woman, um, I'm so rushed most of the time. Like the number of times I've eaten while driving, like we're so rushed that we don't take time to pause. We don't take time for intention. We don't take time to ground in. And so ceremony is literally learning how to create that space of pausing, of calling in who you need to call in to be present. If you want to have a spiritual practice, be part of it. And in different cultures, they call in different things. And I feel like it's really about calling in what feels right for you. So like with a client, for instance, if I have a mom and she's in that transition state or she's just struggling and I'm like, do you want us to pray? Or like, do you want us to call in some backup? And what I do in that moment is I'll call in all the women around the world that are birthing with her. Like I'll call in that collective energy and I'll call in all the women that came before her to birth her, to make this moment possible for her. I will call in all of her ancestors, all of her guides, all of her guardians, all of her angels. Like none of that has to do with faith or religion. Like we're just getting woo-woo with it, but it's also, she can think about that. Like whether she believes that her ancestors are really like showing up, she can think about how like, okay, cool, for me to exist and for me to be in this moment, every single woman before me in my lineage had to cross this threshold. And so learning about ceremony on these trips just helps us then show up as birth workers in space and honor that and create the space and hold the intention of how sacred birth is. So that's the purpose of ceremony. And ceremony can also be an incredibly healing tool, like a healing tool for transitions. And so if a mom, oftentimes like hospital births, even home births, whatever, like things don't always go according to plan. And then you're on the other side. And so I have like a visualization exercise that I have my moms do while they're still pregnant, where I'm like, I want you to picture yourself on the other side of this. You're home, you're with your baby, that like warm afternoon sunlight is coming in, your baby is latched, you're no longer in pain, you just slept 3 hours, you're eating a warm soup, like life is good. Like this is the moment that you've been waiting for and that you've been praying for and that you've been wanting and that you've been, potentially like suffering throughout your pregnancy. Like this is the moment. And sometimes like in that, and so when I have them visualize that, when they're in labor, it's like call on that tool, like call on that person, call on that power, that safety, that comfort that you're feeling because they've really visualized it. That is ceremonial. That is intention setting. Like it doesn't have to be, I think that we've lost sight of, there's like right now, I feel like there's a lot of performance in the ceremony space, and that's not what it's about. Like ceremony shouldn't be performative. It should feel right to you. And so some people are like really skilled at building altars and leading that and like really creating beautiful circles and singing bowls and like whatever. And that's awesome. And other people are, like grew up going to church, and for them, like praying is going to be their ceremony. And that's also beautiful. So I think it's really about finding that moment to ground, to set intention. And a ceremony is just an honoring. And we have ceremonies in different cultures in different ways, like a birthday. Like a birthday party can be a ceremony. A wedding is obviously a ceremony. It's called a ceremony. But like these transitions of life, especially birth, my goodness, that is the greatest ceremony of all time. And so by coming on our trips and by learning directly from these traditional midwives, it doesn't mean that you go home and you replicate, you copy and paste what they do, but it's teaching you how to sit with yourself, how to create circle, how to sit safely in conversation with other people, how to recognize. And then maybe there are pieces that you take with you. And then my hope always is that a doula who did say learn from the midwives in Ecuador or Mexico, if they're going to be utilizing that tool, if they're going to be using a rebozo, they share with their client where the rebozo came from, where they learned, and they recognize and honor the ancestors of that lineage and the teachers that shared it with them. And that's like what's so cool about Wombs of the World, is going directly to that source versus like second, third, fourth hand learning rebozo ceremony, which at the end of the day, I'm like, as long as moms are supported, that's what I care about. But back to the like things being performative, I feel like there's been a lot of mismanagement of these tools without giving them the credit and the recognition that they deserve. So that is the importance of ceremony and how it weaves into birthwork.
Thanks. What has been your biggest takeaway from working with so many birth workers?
That birth workers are just the best. We have the best clients. It's like the most truly like this very specific niche that we work in now, because you're on our team too. Like people are so kind and responsive and loving and understanding, and it's just the most like empathetic, sweet crew of like 99% women. Again, like that's also who we're interacting with. Like I can't think of the last man we've emailed. My accountant. But even our like US accounting team is a bunch of women in the US. So like there's something that's really special about that. Did I answer that question? What was that question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
All right, our next question is, if you could go back and give baby doula Charlotte some advice, what would it be?
Baby doula Charlotte. I think she did a really good job. I'm really proud of baby doula Charlotte. I think maybe actually, baby doula Charlotte read a midwifery book, which was great. I read Catching Babies, and it was written by a midwife, and it's just like a story, her life story of every chapter is a different birth, and it was so impactful. And I was like, I'm gonna go catch babies. And then it's like, no, little baby doula Charlotte, you're not catching babies. That is not your scope of practice. So maybe we don't make posts that say that, because that was just wrong. Yeah. But besides that, I think like a lot of doulas, I had the heart for it off the bat, and I had the calling and the enthusiasm for birth work always. And I don't know about you, but when I get in the birth room, I am in a trance. Like Charlotte is not there. Like whatever that particular client needs is what who I transform into. And I know that's not the case for a lot of people. Like a lot of people, and maybe that's just like, I've been called a chameleon so many times in my life because I've grown up in different cultures. But like I can, to the point sometimes, like when I was working with clients in North Carolina, like my accent changed, like a little twang comes out. And I'm like, just because I just want everybody to feel really comfortable in my presence, but it's really like whatever that mom needs. And so there's going to be some clients that are like really type A, and I can get in that zone with them. And then I'll have other clients that are like really spiritual, and we're praying the entire time and singing. And like, I've got tools, and like I'll pack my singing bowls. And then I have other clients that want to watch America's Next Top Model while they're in labor. And like, this feels like all of my teenage trauma. Making sense? And then I've had clients that are immigrants. I've had clients that are teenagers, like it, and you just adapt. And I was able to do that really well from the get-go because this is such a calling. Like it is deeply spiritual. And so, yeah, Charlotte is checked out as soon as the birth room is entered. And then she comes back. They're talking about myself in the third person. But then I leave the birth, and I'm like out in society, and I'm like, whoa, what just happened? like, what was that? You know, you have to like sit in your car, especially if it's like 3 a.m. It's like you gotta sit in your car. Be like, okay, let's come back into our body. No one's awake to process with me. Okay. And then you can maybe drive home. But the funniest ones are when you have like an afternoon snack baby or like a lunchtime baby, and then you leave and it's like middle of the workday for everybody, and you go to the grocery store and you're like, I just witnessed a miracle and you guys are just going about your day to day? How dare you? You know. So, baby doula Charlotte, so much enthusiasm. Still, clearly, so much enthusiasm. Kendrick,
I love it. We need the enthusiasm.
Kendrick, what advice would you give your baby doula self?
You don't have to have it all figured out to start.
Mm-hmm.
I'm extremely type A. I am more type B now than ever before, but that's not saying much. And so I very much feel like I have to have, I mean, you know, because you work with me every day, like I have to have my plan A, my plan B, my plan C, D, E, and here's all of the other versions of it. And so I was so afraid to start. Even after I did my training, I felt like I had to have all these certain things in place in order to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the first births I supported, it was beautiful and it was wonderful. And it did not follow any sort of textbook training at all, which some of them do and some of them don't, but birth is so different.
Yep.
And it was a great moment of like, it doesn't matter how prepared you are, like there will always be something that changes, good and bad. And in this case, it was a really wonderful change that none of us could have expected. So not being so afraid to just start. Like you don't have to have it all figured out to actually show up and do it. And I see a lot of new doulas get all caught up and I have to have like the birth comb and the tools and all of these things. And especially after going to Tanzania and the more experience I have now, I'm like, you actually don't need any of it other than yourself and your hands and maybe some notes and snacks. A lot of snacks for you. But
Imperative.
like I really wish I would have realized that sooner and gotten out of my own way.
Exactly. And you know, I love that expression of like do it with the like just do it with the audacity or the confidence of like a mediocre white man. It's like the pressure that women put on themselves, that we collectively put on ourselves for perfection. And I understand too, like birth is a huge event, and so you want to show up as prepared as possible. But your client won't know the difference. Your client won't know how confident you feel. And so a lot of it I feel is like that fake it till you make it. And when you're young, like when you're young doula, you can be of any age, but when you're a fresh baby doula, that enthusiasm is so important. Like you're just there because like my clients, you know, I kind of joke and I'm like, I'm going to celebrate your discomfort. Like when you get knocked out by a contraction, that is so productive and so powerful and you are so badass. Love this for you. So sorry that wave totally like knocked you out there for a second, but like when you're here, you're good. And I didn't have that when I was first getting started, you know, like they would get knocked out by a contraction, not like literally knocked out. For those listening, I'm sure that there's a mom that's passed out from contractions, but most of the time it's more just an energetic knocking out like a wave. And I didn't know how to handle that. Like I remember my first birth ever, the mom was in so much pain that she couldn't breathe. Like she was so tense, like in cold water, couldn't breathe. And I didn't have the confidence or the skill set yet to be like, hey, match my breath. Like, let me breathe with you. Like, I got you. Like, feel my breath, you know? And now I would. But at that time, I was just like, what is happening? Cool, you know? And was just like there with her, like gently rubbing her back as we waited on an epidural to come. Like, but she loved me. And like, now that baby's about to turn 8, you know? Just crazy. Got to call her.
Yeah, that is wild.
Yeah. And, you know, I say that like I'm still a baby doula. There's doulas that have been doing this. There's birth workers that have done this for their entire lives. And 8 years is nothing. 8 years is nothing. Like I'm still at the beginning of my career as a birth worker. And what's so cool, like once you get called into this field, once you get called into birth work, you'll never get out of it. Like you are a doula forever. A doula is not a job title. It is like an identity. It is a way of being. Like the way that you listen to others, the way that you learn how to meet people where they're at, the way that you learn how to release your own agenda, the way that that you see systemic inequality, the way that you want to honor transitions for women. And so I feel like there's a lot of doulas now that I know that are a little bit older and very passionate about menopause. And it's like another thing that is so silenced because it's a women's only and it's like older women only. So obviously, like, dismiss them from society. But no, like, we're reclaiming that and like the power of the Crohn's. My goodness, we should only elect grandmothers exclusively. Women in menopause and beyond should be able to run for public office. But yeah, once you're in birth work, once you're in this space, like, there's no getting out of it. And I mean, obviously, but your heart will never not be in it. And what's so cool about it is there's so many different places to take it, whether you're going to be a full-on birth doula, or you want to focus on being a postpartum doula, or you want to get into like pregnancy nutrition, or you want to get into maternal mental health. Like, during COVID, I got my master's in social work with a specialty on maternal mental health, with a specialty around infant loss. And because I didn't know if Wombs of the World was going to ever happen again. I was like, I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to like evolve my practice from a doula into a therapist. And everything I did in grad school is now so applicable to Wombs of the World because birth is freaking universal. Like, supporting women is just so needed, and there's ample space to work in, from like the one-on-one individual supporting a mom to writing policy, to designing birth centers. Like, there's so much. So please join us, everybody. Everyone, be a doula.
This is, I think, what we'll have as our last question, and it'll be a nice wrap up. But what is the future of Wombs of the World in your eyes?
Oh, that evolves every day depending on my mood and enthusiasm. I would like Wombs of the World, big picture, to just contribute to the global narrative around birth and what's possible. I see how small changes can make such a huge impact. And those changes are really, really accessible, and they just need to be pitched. I think that there's such power in marketing, and we know that there's such power in propaganda. And I'm regularly talking about, like, how can we harness propaganda to serve us a little bit right now? Like, how can we make it like the narrative that like women should be so pampered throughout their birthing and postpartum experiences? Like, how can that be something that we run with? So I think that my hope is, in time, the collective of Wombs of the World community, whether, again, that's just like from signing up for the newsletter, you're part of the community, or coming on a trip, or joining a training, or taking the Preparing for Parenthood class that we have online, or signing up for the Doula Launchpad, or the many different ways to get involved. I just want to spread birth knowledge and bringing the sovereignty back to birth and the reverence back to birth, and the bridge, and the bridge between the sacred and the medical, because they can exist. And I think that this is a little bit of a tangent. Again, last question, but something that I think that birth workers do really, really well is hold complexity, because many things can be true. And the metaphor for that, for me, that comes up a lot is around C-sections, like wanting to recognize and hold, like, wow, mom, you are so brave and so badass for literally having the most vulnerable sacrifice of giving your body for the safety of your baby, and having major abdominal surgery while awake, and then handed a child, and then like expected to breastfeed that child within hours of surgery. Like, whoa, let's honor you. Let's celebrate that. And let's mourn the fact that that wasn't the birth you wanted. Let's mourn the fact that that was probably really, really, really scary. Like, we can hold both, and we need so much more of that in this world. And there's just so much hate and so much division in the world right now. And I think that doulas spreading compassion and gentleness and softness has so much potential. And so that's why we focus, and our big picture always is going to be to support. It's like our tagline is uplifting, educating, and supporting birth workers, connecting birth workers. We got a lot of words, but we're supporting birth workers because they take care of the moms, and moms take care of everybody else. So more birth workers, changing the world one birth at a time.
Thank you, Charlotte. I hope that the people got the answers they were looking for. And if you are listening and have more questions for Charlotte, please feel free to email us, message us, keep the conversation going, and we will definitely have more of these going forward. But thank you so much for your time and answering all of these questions. It was really great to get to know a little bit more about you, our founder here at Wombs of the World.
Well, thank you, Kendrick, and thank you to everybody listening. And if you are looking for Wombs of the World or want to get involved, it is wombsoftheworld.com or Wombs of the World just about everywhere. So, yeah, give us a follow. Mwah!